Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay. So, you all have a quiz in 15 minutes. So you are welcome to ask me any questions, and I will come to you and answer your questions. Just like last class, the class before you, ask me questions that were on the exam. So I do encourage you to ask me for clarification if you need it. Okay. You will have 20 minutes for the exam, and I just posted in the classroom that this is nothing to do with the quiz, but that the dates for your presentations are also are in the document now. So if you signed up, you can see your presentation date, and that's that. About free trade. Okay, so this is a separate question. Free trade is the system where you minimize the taxes and imports to encourage as much exports as possible between countries. What you're hoping to do, what you believe, is that by trading, you're actually going to create a market where everyone can benefit. So free trade, minimize the taxes, increase as low taxes as possible, so that people can import So what countries sometimes do is they increase the taxes on on people trying to import to their country. So if you're Cambodia, you might increase taxes on anyone trying to bring something into the country because you actually don't want other people's products to mess with, to affect your market. Free trade, though, says, oh no, why have taxes? We need to allow for there to be flow of goods between countries because I help you help me. Rather than, I don't want other people to import things in my country because that destroys my economy. Why do you You mean about with Cambodia? Related to Cambodia or just in general? Okay, yeah, because Cambodia has been trying to minimize free trade because it doesn't like having free trade with Europe. What's the difference between? An empire is a large territory. The people don't necessarily do not see each other as the same. Like you might have, like you might be from Malaysia, you might be from Thailand, you might be from Vietnam, but everyone is like the same thing. A country, you actually have a unified identity. We're all part of a single country. We're all separate. So empire, you have a large territory. You may not follow the same advice, you may not follow the same practices, but you are all being ruled by one person. The state is the government of a country. So in Cambodia, the country is ruled by the king. The government, the person who makes the laws, who you have to pay taxes to, who can make sure that the education system is okay, that's the state. That's headed by the prime minister. So the prime minister is the state of Cambodia, the king heads the country of Cambodia. And there are some places that are a country but do not have a state in the similar way. So, Hong Kong it doesn't have a form of state. It doesn't have autonomy to make rules. It's China that does that. But it's a country in the sense that it has a very unique identity that is separate from China. But China is the government. Yeah. Way of thinking, right? That's the set of beliefs. If there are no other questions, then I ask that you clear your desk, put your phones on silent, put your phones away, put your notes away. So please, everyone, make sure that you are also connected to a stable Wi-Fi before we get started. So check that your computer is connected. taking the quiz, if you need to talk, use Facebook Messenger, okay? Closing the countdown. Hit submit. Okay. That wasn't too bad. What? Guys, it wasn't that bad. Was it? No. There you go. Have some heart. Alright, so I believe this is probably your last class of the day? Yes? No. No, really? You have class after me? Yes. Aww, boo-boo. Alright. Well, happy Monday. Let's review what we talked about last class. The reason why I'm not using the microphone is because I have to disconnect it for some of the videos. So everyone can hear me in the back? Yes. Wonderful. So let's review. What is isolationism? I'm going to go to the back. Hi guys. What's isolationism? are remaining apart from another country. You are choosing to take care of your own country's affairs, and you are not getting invested or involved in other countries. So what country are we talking about with isolationism? China. Yes. So under the Ming Dynasty, China decided to go into isolation. Number 2, describe the characteristics of a centralized government. What are the characteristics of a centralized government? What are the characteristics of a centralized government? Team middle of the room. What are the characteristics of a centralized government? Good economy and trade. Any other characteristics? What are some characteristics of a centralized government? Yes. This group right here. I'm waiting for a response from 1, 2, 3, 4. People obey the law. People obey the law. That's wonderful. What's another one? One controlled by one government. Yes, very good. See, you guys? So centralized government. Remember, we talked about this last class. It's all about having a strict, controlled government. Power goes through one leader, one government. Things are tightly regulated. You might have a government that's very consistent. You are able to rely on this government. Everything is controlled and managed by a central bureaucracy. This is in contrast to a decentralized government, a government where you have freedom, a lot more freedom to do what you would like to do. So you are able to start businesses or have more control over your property. But when you also have a decentralized government, you have a lot of differences in how things happen. So in Cambodia, we would have what you would consider a centralized government. Everything, for the most part, has to go through the country, the prime minister and all of the ministries. In the United States, we have a decentralized government where the individual states like New York or California, they are able to do things on their own that are different from the government of the United States. So the states have a lot more power, whereas here, the provinces can't just do whatever they want. Battambang is not going to be completely different from Kampot province. So that's the difference between a centralized government and a decentralized government. So today, we're going to be talking about the beginning of a new age of European exploration. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on the shift in economic behavior, the way we have seen Europeans make money, and now it's going to be changing to a new policy of making money. So we need to understand exactly where we are in this time. We are at now the beginning of the 15th century, the 1400s. And you have China that is now choosing to look inward, to focus on itself, with no more explorations, no more large junk ships crossing the Indian Oceans. At the same time, you have the Europeans that are starting to look outward. They are starting to explore more in different places to get more business. This is now the beginning of the age of European exploration, which has typically been lasted from the 15th century, 1400s, through the 18th century, 1700s. And this is a time where you have Europeans who are now willing and able to leave their very small geography and go to new places in search of gold and spices and other raw materials. Now, up until this point, Europe, as we talked about last class, was pretty basic. China had already surpassed the technology of the Europeans. They were the ones who were inventing amazing things. The Indians were the ones who were translating texts and exploring new worlds. And yet, Europe had stayed the same for a very long time. Because of the Black Plague, you had a dramatic shift. So one of the shifts that happened around, we'll be talking about that in a little bit, but one of the shifts that happened was the fact that you had the lords and nobles who owned all the property and were now, half of them were now dead. Same with the peasants. They were the ones who had the power. They were the ones who had the land. So therefore, well, there was no need to change the way that things operated. When the Black Plague came through and killed off people, it also forced a change in the way that Europeans did business. But something else major changed. If we look at this map of trading routes, you have the European trading route, which is in purple. The European trading route goes right around Spain and Portugal through this little section between Africa and Spain, and it goes into the Mediterranean Sea. Through the Mediterranean Sea, you can either make a left and go down past Egypt and to what's in blue, which is the spice trade, or you can make a right and go through to the red, which is the Silk Road. Basically, Europe only was able to go up until this part right here, right where today's modern day Turkey. This right here is Turkey. So Europe was kind of was forced to stop here and trade with a specific empire called the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was one of the most powerful Islamic caliphates, Islamic empires in the world. And it reached its peak, it reached one of the heights of its power during the 15th and 16th centuries. Now, I mentioned that this is an Islamic power, an Islamic empire, a caliphate, which means that they don't really like the Christians. Both Christians and Muslims were looking to convert as many people as they could. So it was in their interest to also have as much land. When you have land, you're able to build mosques, you're able to control the people on that land. So you have here the Ottoman Empire, which is in orange, and then you have a little bit of the Christian Empire that just happens to be in purple here. The Christian Empire was called the Byzantine Empire, and that was a result of the breakup. That was a result of the fall of the Roman Empire. You had the Roman Empire that divided into the Western Roman Empire and gave you Spain, Portugal, France, and Britain eventually. And then you have the Byzantine Empire. And right next to the Byzantine Empire, you had the Arab Caliphate, the Ottoman Empire. So what happened was that during the battle, during this fight for territory, the Christians were losing more and more territory in this area. You can see the Byzantine Empire is in purple. Right here, this little bit right here is also in purple. This is the city of Constantinople, which was the Christian capital, the capital of the Christian Byzantine. So I'm going to show you a video that talks a little bit about the history of the Ottoman Empire and what happened during the battle for Constantinople.
At its height, the Ottoman Empire spanned 3 continents and covered what we now know today as Turkey, Egypt, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Macedonia, Hungary, Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and several other regions in Arabia and North Africa. It was one of the largest and longest-lasting empires in history, spanning from about 1299 CE all.
Look at those dates, people. From 1300 CE to 1922. What war had just ended during this time? World War I. So we had an empire, the Ottoman Empire, that lasted from the 1300s all the way through World War I.
Wait to 1922. Today, few remnants of the once mighty empire remain, largely centralized in Turkey. But how did the Ottoman Empire rise to power in the first place? Originally, the eastern region of the Mediterranean where the Ottoman Empire flourished was actually under control of the Roman Empire, specifically the Eastern Roman Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire. After Western Rome fell in the 5th century, the Christian Byzantine Empire struggled to keep up in the face of rapidly spreading Islam. This followed the Golden Age of Islam, which lasted from around the 8th to the 13th century. Around the 14th century, a tribal leader named Osman Gazi, or Osman I, came to control a small principality just south of the Black Sea. Although small, the region Osman controlled was also primed for the spread of Islam, with Islamic fighters hoping to overcome the weakening Christian Byzantine. And while Osman never saw the fruition of his efforts while he was alive, his military continued to expand under subsequent leaders, growing the empire and eventually culminating in one of the most important military conquests in history, the fall of Constantinople. In 1453, the Byzantine Empire was on its last legs, and barely holding territory outside of its capital, Constantinople. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire had spread throughout the Mediterranean region. By some accounts, roughly 100,000 to 150,000 Ottoman fighters descended on roughly 10,000 defenders of the Byzantine capital.
So you have this insane number. 150,000 Ottoman forces, soldiers, against 10,000 poor little Byzantines. They were never going to make it.
Also, the 150,000 Ottoman fighters descended on roughly 10,000 defenders of the Byzantine capital. There would have been more defenders, but the Black Plague had just swept through and decimated Constantinople's forces. After less than a 2-month siege, the capital was overrun, and the Byzantine Empire, along with the Roman Empire, finally collapsed forever. Constantinople was quickly converted into the new capital of the Ottoman Empire and was colloquially renamed as Istanbul, meaning full of Islam.
So does anybody know what the capital of Turkey is? Yes, I heard it. Istanbul. So it changed a little bit, but Istanbul is the way that it was called in the 1400s and eventually changed to Istanbul that we know it today. But Istanbul comes from the term meaning full of Islam.
And in fact, one of the biggest reasons for the empire's continued growth was the massive influence of religion. Besides being united by the concept of conquest in the name of Islam, also called jihad, the Ottoman Sultan was considered a protector of Islam, as was the empire itself. With such a strong religious backing, as well as a massively powerful slave-based army, few other forces were able to compete or defend themselves. The Ottomans were also great at forming unlikely alliances.
So that last bit was the important part. You have the Ottoman Empire that is now, you have the Ottoman Empire that is extremely strong and powerful. It was really, really hard to go up against them and win. They had a strong military presence, and the Sultan had a lot of power to be able to control all of the lands. So you have here, the main Ottoman Empire is in dark brown, and then you have the light brown and the orange of how big the Ottoman Empire eventually became. Going from Algeria, the top of Algeria, the top of, this is Algeria, Tunisia, and then Egypt, Syria, all the way through even Hungary. That's how large the Ottoman Empire was. Now remember that I mentioned to you the Europeans are Christian, and they're all over here. What do you think was going to happen when it comes to trade, between the Christians and the Muslims? Were the Muslims going to make it easy for the Christians to trade? No. So when Constantinople fell to the Muslims, they basically told the Christians, we don't want to trade with you anymore. We're not going to let you do business with us because we want your land. And if you're not going to give us your land, we do not want to do business with you. So when in 1453 the Ottomans eventually conquered Constantinople, they basically cut off the Europeans from trade with the rest of Asia. Especially as when you have all of the trade going through the Mediterranean, if that's all you have, well, now you have to start looking for a new path. So the Europeans, and particularly the Spanish and the Portuguese, now needed to look for another path. And, it was totally possible because of the technology that some of you studied. Because of the magnetic compass that allowed for people to navigate without needing to see the stars. So even if there was a storm and you no longer could follow the North Star, you still had a little compass letting you know where to go and how to travel. You had a rudder, which was a device on the back of a boat that helped steer that boat in the correct direction so that you were able to take more specific and more accurate paths. And then you also had more accurate maps. So combining the knowledge received from Arabs and Indians and the Chinese, the Europeans were working very hard to create and draw the most accurate maps. But no matter with all of these technologies, the problem was no one had ever done this trip before. So it doesn't matter if you have the best technology, you have the most accurate maps, you are still driving into unfamiliar, not even unfamiliar, unknown territory. Because people understood that Africa existed, but no one knew how far down it was. No one quite, not, and some people didn't still believe that it was possible to sail that far or to sail that way because people didn't understand how the earth worked. So I'm going to show you another video that's just a little more educational about how people learned about navigation. In your slides that you downloaded, you have these questions. So please focus on the answers in the little video.
Hey there, welcome to Life Night. Right now, you're probably watching this video from somewhere on Earth, that big, round, beautiful planet you humans call home. But how do you know the Earth is round? Your senses would tell you that it's flat. After all, if you stand in a large field, it actually looks pretty flat. And if you walk through that field, it doesn't feel like you're going over a curve. Could it be that the Earth is actually flat? Well, let's try an experiment. Say you're standing in a field outside of Chicago. If the Earth is flat, you should be able to see southwest and see some of the tallest points in the United States, the Rocky Mountains. But the thing is, you can't. That's because of the curvature of the Earth. You'll notice a similar problem if you stand on a seashore and try to watch a boat sail away. After a while, it will disappear from view. And not only that, but the bottom of the boat will vanish before the top as it goes over what's called the horizon line, the place where the sky meets the Earth. For someone who is 6 feet tall, the horizon line is only 3 miles away. But the higher up you are, the farther you can see over the Earth's curve. This is why standing on a tall mountain might allow you to see over 100 miles, while standing in a field will only let you see a short distance. It also means that taller people can see slightly farther than shorter people. Good thing my animator can make me any height. See? I'm like that one ant dude. The thing is, none of this is new information. We've known about the planet's curvature for over 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks figured out that the Earth is round based on several pieces of evidence, including their observations of ships going over the horizon line. The scientist Aristotle, writing in 350 BCE, noted that during an eclipse, the Earth makes a round shadow on the moon. He also realized that stars appear in different places depending on where you're standing. For example, he saw stars in Egypt that weren't visible farther north. Roughly 100 years later, humans got their first measurements of the Earth's curve from another Greek mathematician, Eratosthenes. He had heard of a city in southern Egypt where at noon on the summer solstice, the sun was directly overhead and the buildings cast no shadows. But at the same time, in the northern city of Alexandria, the buildings did cast shadows, meaning the sun was at a different angle in the sky. On the day of the solstice, Eratosthenes stuck a stick in the ground in Alexandria and measured the angle of its shadow. Using the distance between the two cities, he was able to calculate the curvature of the Earth. You can actually perform the same experiment if you have a friend living a few miles away. Or if your friend is several hours west, you can get more proof that the Earth is round by calling them at sunset and asking how the sky looks. It will still be daylight there because of the Earth's curve. And there's one more piece of clear evidence for the planet's shape. Pictures taken from space. Maybe you're not on Earth after all, and you're actually watching this video from the space station, in which case, please leave a comment because that's so cool. If that's true, you'll have a bird's eye view of this giant blue and green globe. What a beautiful place to live. So what other myth?
So you have people, so to check, how long have we known that the Earth was round? 2,000 years. Which group of people first discovered that the Earth was round? Ancient Greeks. Woo, you guys are not waking. You're not awake. And then, can you name the philosopher who first said that the Earth was round? Aristotle. Yes. So you can spell it this way. we have known for quite some time that the earth is round, but it still was a very scary prospect. It was still very, incredibly overwhelming to think that we were going to travel into the actual unknown and find our way to new paths to the spice trade, new paths to India and the spices. So all of this, though, was motivated by an actual shift in economics. So I talked during the Black Plague, I talked about feudalism and that system that we had where lords and nobles had all the control over property, including people. So under feudalism, you had people who were unable, peasants, were not able to ever become nobles. So if you are a noble, you are not going to want to give up your power. You're going to want to hold on to it and not change anything. But when the Black Plague forced people to change, because now there were fewer nobles, now the peasants were able to have more land to make money on their own, become farmers, become merchants, become traders, you have a new system that is able to take place. And we call that system mercantilism. Mercantilism is now a system where it's all about making as much money as possible for yourself as well as for the country that you work for. So if I represent France and I am a French person who wants to go exploring, I can ask for money, go take a trip, and I will make some money, and I will give some money to France, to the king and queen of France. So that is how mercantilism is started. We now have a shift from lords and nobles having power to now the king and queen having power, and under which you have merchants who are able to make money and give some of that money back to their country. So, the key to success in mercantilism is all about exporting as much as possible, importing as much as possible, and charging as high of tariffs as possible. So first, what are imports? Take in. Bring in, that's right, I got it. Then what are exports? When you sell to other countries. What are tariffs? What kind of taxes? So tariffs are specifically the taxes that you charge on exports and imports. So what we're talking about here is balancing the trade where you have imports and exports and using taxes to control trade. So, for example, what are some items that Cambodia imports? What are some things that Cambodia imports? I'm an import. What else does Cambodia import? All right, fine. Import everything. I will put down everything. Okay, so then what are some things that Cambodia exports? So hopefully CANET students will be exported to the world. Okay, so that's good, yes. So does Cambodia import more or export more? Right. So if we think about the fact that Cambodia imports more, it means that Cambodia spends more money bringing things into Cambodia rather than sending products out of Cambodia. Now, then you have tariffs. Now, how does tariff affect trade? How do you use a tariff in order to affect trade? Higher what? Yes, higher taxes what? Right. So when you have higher taxes, you then try to protect your industry. So let's say that you have an electronic, you have a laptop. Cambodia makes its own laptop, and then you have laptops from another country, Vietnam. If you want to protect your industry, you're going to want to charge what kind of taxes? If you want to protect Cambodia's laptop industry, do you charge higher taxes or lower? Higher taxes, because if you want to prevent someone from bringing a product into the country, you charge them more. And if you want to then have more people, if you want to export, you're going to charge fewer taxes because you want people to buy your products. So cheap if you export. So that's how tariffs affect trade. And now, when you want to have a favorable balance of trade, you're going to want to have more exports. You want for people to buy as much of your products as possible. And you want to prevent people from buying from you. And what you really want to do is create a very favorable relationship with other countries that benefits you. Imagine, you guys have a mango tree in your backyard. Big mango tree, lots of mangoes, delicious mangoes. I come and I say, hey, could I buy some of your mangoes? Would that be okay? And you guys are so generous. You give me 2 kilos of mangoes for $5. It's amazing. Thank you so much. I go home. I take the mangoes and I make mango salad. I dry some mangoes even and I turn them into a snack. The next day, I come visit you. Hey, would you like some mango salad? And you say, oh, sure. How much? $10. materials, what you had, I purchased it, and then I converted it into a new product and sold it right back to you. So that's making a profit and is also creating a favorable balance of trade for me. So you guys, you have your goods, I take your goods. So I'm the mother country. Mother countries are countries like Britain, you have France, you have Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands. So I'm the mother country. I want to make as much money as possible. I come to you. I take your materials for cheap, and then I turn them into new products and sell you those products for tlaina. But you still have to buy it. You still have to buy it. So that is what mercantilism is. You want to get as much gold as possible. You export as much as you can. You prevent imports as much as you can. And then you have this back and forth relationship between mother countries and colonies. So what you're actually doing is creating a zero-sum game, where no matter what, I, as the mother country, win. And you, as the country that has natural resources, loses. And this system of mercantilism is what actually starts this procedure, what actually creates the system that we have today of unfortunate exploitation of countries that have a lot of wonderful natural resources by countries like in Europe and eventually the United States that are able to take those resources and turn them into something new. So that's mercantilism. So we're going to just summarize quickly. We started at the beginning talking about the Ottoman Empire, right? The Ottoman Empire is Muslim. They do not like the Christians, the Christian Europeans, and so therefore they conquer the capital of the Byzantine, the Christian Byzantine Empire, take it away and say, Christians, we do not want to work with you anymore. You cannot trade through the Mediterranean. So then you have the Europeans who now need to look for a new path. So the Europeans had to shift in how they make money. They no longer could use this feudal system that focused on only making money in the country. They needed to now go exploring, try new things, find new paths. Lords and nobles were no longer as important as now the king and queen, who wanted her subjects to now bring money back from other countries, bring resources back from other countries, and take those resources to make more money. So now you have this system of mercantilism. For next class, we're going to talk about the Spanish and Portuguese explorers who then were the first ones to not only find a new path to India, to the Spice Islands, but then also started a system of domination and imperialism, which means imperialism is about power. There you go. Who had a system of power that lasted until today. All right, we're good. This is really weird.
You're just projecting your voice down. So we're going to right now is very famous for making higher and higher tariffs.
Oh.
There's
currently a tariff war.
Is there any, have you heard about any country making higher taxes on other countries, higher tariffs on their goods? So the USA, and led by President Donald Trump, is creating higher and higher tariffs on goods from China. And I'm sure your professor, at some point, she'll probably share some insight into what President Trump is doing. Because President Trump and Dr. Mitzi, they're from the same city, New York.
Way to make me really popular right now.
I think he might be from Queens, actually.
Yeah.
His father did, at least they did a lot of construction projects in Queens. So we are here to recognize, today we're here to recognize your efforts. Some of you have had some outstanding performances last term. And so we would like to recognize today those of you who last term got the top 3 places for your subjects. So who was number 1, who was number 2, who was number 3 for the subjects of psychology, English, political science, and statistics. So psychology, English, political science, statistics. So 4 courses. And Cambodian studies?
Yes. Which would mean history.
But I think we don't have Cambodian studies. Okay, so I'm going to let my colleague, Ms. History-Mitsy-Session8, call the names of you who we refer to you as our top scorers for your class.
Okay, so right now I would like to announce our top score in the group I. So the first student, she got number 3 in the subject of psychology and number 3 in the subject of English 1. Congratulations to Ms. Te Solida. The second student, she got number 3 in the subject political science and number 2 in the subject of statistics 1. Congratulations to Ms. On Kim Gate.
Congratulations.
She got number 2 in the subject statistics 1. Congratulations to Ms. Kari Safara. Next student, she got number 2 in the subject of psychology. Congratulations to Ms. Lê Mani Tina. She got number 1 in subject of English 1. Congratulations to Miss January. Student got number 1 in the subject of political science. Congratulations to me, Ian Dekua.
Yes, I see we have several winning students in the front row, often the students that are very
Okay, last student. She got number 2 in the subject of political science and number 1 in the subject of psychology. Congratulations to me, Leng Wood Lang.
So we are working hard to prepare you, and you also are working hard. We're all working hard together to prepare you for your career. And our target is for you to become a professional, to become an accounting or finance professional. And many of you will start with the Big Four, PwC, KPMG, EY, or other international audit and professional firms such as Grant Thornton, BDO. However, after several years of building your work experience, we hope that you get onto a path to become a CEO, a CFO, a business owner. And there are many large international businesses today that were started by professionals who started as accountants. Have you heard of Nike? So Nike was founded by Phil Knight. And Phil Knight was not a professional who studied how to make shoes. He was not an athlete. He was a public accountant. And it was his accounting skills, his business management skills that led him to be successful with his company Nike. Have any of you been on the airline AirAsia? And AirAsia is a popular budget airline from, especially here in Southeast Asia. Also founded by an auditor, a former auditor, named Anthony Fernandez. And so he took his experience as an accounting professional and he used that knowledge as a foundation for launching his company. And I hope too that you also will have the opportunity to become a business leader, a business owner. But to be a business leader, a business owner, business manager, it's not enough to have your hard skills. It's not enough to have skills in accounting and auditing and finance. You also need to have skills in managing, leading, working in a team. You need to have confidence in speaking, giving presentations, and you're not only going to learn this in your classes. It's very important for you to participate in student clubs and competitions as a chance for you to develop these skills. And the student clubs and competitions, how do we pay for them? We pay for them with part of your tuition that you pay to study. So when you don't join a student club, when you don't participate in the competition, you're losing some of the money that you paid to study. So today, I'm going to invite you to join a competition that's going to help you to develop these skills that you'll need for your career and for your success. And this competition is the President's Debate and Presentation Championship. We have 4 debates. Each debate is Saturday afternoon. Your debate team should be 3 people. So you should have 3 friends in your team. And something we've done to make it easy for you is that the debate topics are going to be repeated each week. So when you prepare for the debates in the first week, you will be able to use your notes and what you prepared for the second week, the third week, and the fourth week. So this will make it easier for you to prepare. And we hope, at the same time, this will help you to have a deeper research in preparing. The debates are every Saturday afternoon. We also have a presentation